Hello and welcome everyone. In this video, you are going to learn networking architecture. You will know the definition of networking architecture, their types with advantages and disadvantages. So let's understand what is a networking architecture. So networking architecture or the network model specifies how computers on the network are connected and how they interact with each other. So networking architectures defines the interconnection between the computers of the network and how they interact with each other. It also specifies the administrative power that the computers have in the network. So it is the model that defines the interactions of the computers and the connections between them. Now let's talk about the types of network architecture. According to the administrative powers the computers have in the network and the interactions between them, there are two types of network architecture. The first one is peer-to-peer network architecture and the next one is client-server network architecture. So we will know about these two types along with the advantages and disadvantages. So let me tell you about peer-to-peer network architecture. The network architecture where all the computers on the network act as the server as well as the client, that is known as peer-to-peer network architecture. So the network model where all the computers have the equal rights or where all the computers act as the server as well as the client, such type of network architecture is known as peer-to-peer network architecture. In this network architecture, all the computers have equal rights and they can be used as a server as well as a workstation. So in the peer-to-peer network architecture, all the computers that are in the network, they have equal rights. They can be used as the server or as the client. If one computer is requesting the data at that time, it is the client computer, and if it provides the data to other computer, it is the server computer. There is no any central server in this type of network architecture. Now let's talk about the merits of peer-to-peer network architecture. It is very easy to set up. So peer-to-peer network architectures are very easy to set up. We can set this type of, or we can create this type of network very easily. It is cheaper than client-server network architecture. We do not need the central server. As a result, it is cheaper as compared to the client-server network architecture. The administering of the network can be done easily. So the configuration or the installation or the settings or the administering of this network can be done easily. Now let's talk about the disadvantages or the demerits of peer-to-peer network architecture. It cannot handle a heavy workload. So peer-to-peer network architecture cannot handle the heavy workload. It cannot handle the high data traffic. The expansion of the network is limited. So this is the small type of network. We cannot expand to the large network easily. Software needs to be installed on every computer as there is no any central server. So each computer must have the special type of softwares for the communications. Now let's talk about the client-server network architecture. The network architecture where there is only one dedicated server and rest of the computers are client computer, that is called the client-server network architecture. So the network model that has the central server and a network model that has a single central server and rest of the computers are the client computers, such type of networking architecture is known as client-server network architecture. In this network architecture, the server only performs the job of a server. It means the server can be used to provide the services to client computers. It cannot be used as the client computer. It cannot be used as the workstation in the network. As I already told, the server cannot be used as the workstation or the client computer. The job of the server is to provide the services and other informations to the client computers. So such type of network where there is one dedicated server and rest of the computers are client computer, such type of network architecture is client server network architecture. Okay, now let's talk about the merits of the client server network architecture. It provides a high level of security. In client server network architecture, the security level is very high. The controlling and the managing of workstation or the client computers are done by the powerful centralized server. As there is the centralized server in the client server network architecture, so all the controlling and the managing activities is performed by that server. The size of the network can be expanded to any size very easily. We can add any workstation or the client computers to expand the network size because there is the central server in this type of network architecture that can handle multiple computers at the same time. It can carry a heavy workload, so it can handle a heavy workload and can manage high data traffic. These are some of the advantages of client server network architecture. Now let's talk about the disadvantages of client server network architecture. It is very expensive than peer-to-peer network architecture as we have to use the centralized server, so it is expensive as compared to peer network architecture. Skilled manpower is required to operate this type of network architecture. This network architecture is little bit complex as there is the use of server. Skilled manpower is used to operate such type of network architecture. High data traffic. This type of network architecture has to manage high data traffic. That is another disadvantage of client server network. This is all about the network architecture, its types, along with the advantages and disadvantages. I hope you have understood what is networking architecture, their types very well. So this much for now. See you in the next video.